Only 10 minutes late. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. Everything's fine. It's fine. Everything's fine. Fine. Everything's fine. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Here we are. Yes. There we go. Sorry, Facebook. My face seems huge on Facebook. Just the setup that I happened to get today. So here we are with my huge face on Facebook. Instagram, I'm not quite so in your face, and you're lucky for that. You're welcome. My super professional setup. Just gonna move my notes over. I actually made some notes today. What? I know, it's a whole new world. It's a whole new world. Made some notes today so that I might actually stay on track. What? That's crazy. No. All right, friends, so welcome. It is Friday, and therefore, here we are. My name is Dr. Shannon Coates. I'm a singer, I'm an educator, and a pedagogy maximizer. I am coming to you live from a little town that is north of Toronto in Ontario, the traditional lands of the Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabe, the Mississauga, and the Wendat Neo-Wendat peoples. And I am here talking today, doing some live office hours, as I have alluded to on the socials, doing some live office hours about child voice, just sort of leading into the set of classes, live lectures that I am doing in the end of, my calendar's over there. Oh, in like 1, 2, in just a little while. 10, yeah, I don't know, in like 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 2 or 3 weeks, something like that. The 3 lectures that I'm doing, the 3 live lectures that I'm doing, I haven't put them together in this way before, so I haven't done them. I've done them in other ways before. So this time around, I'm doing all 3 at once, not at once, on 3 different days. So Child Voice 101, Evolving Voice 101, and Aging Voice 101. So 3 live lectures in a row. And these are going to be, we're talking about child voice in the first class. We're talking about the adolescent voice in the second class. And we're talking about the aging voice, obviously, in the third class. That's what they're called. So that's what we're talking about. In the child voice, we're talking specifically about child anatomy and physiology, what that looks like. And we're also talking about how that shapes our expectations around what is possible and what is an appropriate expectation for working with children. We're also talking about, and what is typical, and we're also talking about keeping kids engaged, and we're talking about lesson pacing, supporting agency, big one, supporting agency. How do I work with children in a way that starts to allow for them to find agency and to find ownership of their own voice, especially in a world where we are constantly sort of just telling kids what to do, right? And so as part of that series, by the way, the entire series, it's a live lecture series, and then those lectures will all be available on the VoicePad 101 library platform. That's right, as of the 1st of August. So if you subscribe, you will have access to those, as well as the other things that are in there. So just FYI. And today, as a lead up to Child Voice 101, happening on Monday the 22nd, I am talking about appropriate repertoire. And as I mentioned in one of the posts that I have made recently, I've had a real 180 turn on my opinion about what's appropriate repertoire for children and how we shape what children sing. I've had a real 180 turn on that. I have been known to, in fact, I am on record. In fact, I'm pretty sure there's a blog post of mine out there way back in the day talking about how to know what is appropriate repertoire for children and why. And you know, the 3 things, I should look and see whether that's still available or not. Because I've changed my mind. Big reason that I've changed my mind on this, a big reason that I've changed my mind is because the more I think about values-led pedagogy, the more I think about my job as an educator is to support learning and to support agency over the voice, and agency over learning. My job is to support learners as they learn how to learn. Rather than my job is to tell singers what to do, and my job is to sort of like make sure everybody's safe, and my job is to sort of save, you know, rather than that being my job, the more I think through the ramifications of values-led pedagogy and what my values are and blah, blah, blah. The more I think through all of those things, the farther away from I need to tell singers, especially children, even children maybe, what repertoire is appropriate for them to sing. And so we're going to talk through that today. The 3 reasons that I have talked about in the past of repertoire being inappropriate, the 3 ways you can tell that repertoire is inappropriate for kids. 1, the song is beyond the singer's technical ability, right? So if the singer cannot sing the range, if they cannot create the appropriate tonal quality for that song, perhaps they can't, you know, do the right accent, or they do not yet have the ability to have, you know, sing in Italian that is, I don't know, authentic sounding, or something along those lines. So if it is beyond their ability to, or perhaps it's the belting part of it, or perhaps whistle tone, or perhaps some part of that, of the technical requirements to sing this song properly, are not available to a young singer. So for me, in the past, that was like, oh no, you can't sing that because your voice won't work, and you might hurt yourself trying to sing in this way. So that's the one inappropriate thing. The other inappropriate thing that I've talked about in the past is if the text or the experience of the character is outside of the experience of the child who is singing this text. For example, you know, Alleluia, like the Leonard Cohen Alleluia, for example, or like Memory from Cats, which I sang when I was like 13 years old. You know, that is outside of the experience of, or someone like you met someone, like I peered through windows, watched life go by. Really, at like 8 years old, you were watching life go by? Okay. If that is outside of the experience, or the, hopefully outside of the experience of, oh, Cyndi Lauper, what's the Cyndi Lauper, from Kinky Boots, well, her song as well, about men, can't remember. If someone remembers and wants to throw it in the comments, please feel free. Jog my brain. Anyway, all of those songs, hopefully, are outside of the experience of a young singer, right? So when I'm talking about child singers, I'm sort of talking about like 10 and under. I'm talking sort of like preteen and under, maybe even 13 and under. So when we're talking about child singing, History of Wrong, guys, thank you. Yep, that's the one. So like, I hope that at like 10 years old, you don't have a history of wrong guys. I hope at like 16, maybe, you don't have a history of wrong guys. Maybe 1 or 2 wrong guys, but hopefully not like a history, right? I'm hoping that that is beyond your experience. I'm hoping that that's not something you're going to be totally relating to, being able to sing with authenticity. And so that was always one of the things that I said, okay, but you can't sing this with authenticity. You can't, you know, you can't connect to this language or to this storytelling, and so that's not an appropriate song for you. Okay. And then the third one, which lots of people mentioned in comments on the socials this week as well, is when the song has really sexually explicit language, or, you know, questionable language, where there's sort of, you know, swearing or language that we don't necessarily want young children necessarily to use for whatever reason. That is also, for me, that was definitely a deal breaker, right? Where, you know, I'm saying, nope, can't sing that song. It's about X, Y, Z. So here are ways, here is how, when I start to view this through, when I start to view these levels of appropriate, or the reason that these things are inappropriate for children or for teens, 10-year-old singing Hazbin Hotel. I know. We got lots of stuff, right? Woo! So here's when I start to view those decisions that I had made and the things that I have said and some of the things that I have asked singers not to sing in the past, through this view of my job is to offer options and to support learning rather than to tell people what they can and can't do. So my expertise is not here to say, oh, that's not a thing you can do, because my expertise, my experience, the reason I'm in this position is so that I can say, if you make, here are the possible decisions, and if you make this decision, here's the cost, and if you make this decision, here's the cost, and if you make this decision, here's the cost. I'm going to support your decision making by offering you the options so that, and speaking to you about the costs so that you have the learning experience and the agency to make decisions for yourself with as much information as my expertise can bring to the table. That's why I'm the expert. I'm not the expert in the room so that I can tell you what to do and what not to do. I am the expert in the room so that I can tell you what the cost will be when you make decisions. So then you start to learn agency, and I am along with you supporting. So how does that work out then in those three situations, or those three kind of levels of appropriateness, if you will? When a song is beyond a singer's technical abilities, like they may not physically be able to actually create the sounds that the song requires or that the artist uses, or that Western classical singing, for example, style requires, the body is not mature enough, right? Many of these songs, the entire Western, 99% of the Western classical genre is written for a matured voice to sing, right? Like that's the nature of Western classical singing, because we are unamplified, and therefore when I am unamplified, I need to have a very specific coordination in order to create tonal outcomes that are going to be heard in a hall, as I've talked about before. That is a very specific coordination that is only available, for the most part, to a matured instrument, to a body that is able to coordinate in these very specific ways. Children's bodies are not yet able to coordinate in these very specific ways. As we move into teenagerhood, and as we move into sort of upper teens especially, we start to have the matured body that is now able, in many cases, to start to coordinate in the specific ways that are required in order for us to be heard on stage in Western classical styles. So when we're talking about, for example, Nessun Dorma, as someone mentioned in a comment, like 7th grader singing Nessun Dorma, old me, former me, is saying, no, that's not possible because it's going to hurt their voices. The only way it's going to hurt a young singer's voice to sing Nessun Dorma when they're in the 7th grade is if we require them to sound like an adult while they sing it. That's the only way it's going to hurt them, or cause long-term, issues, or cause things that are going to be challenging, or coordinations that are going to be challenging to resolve as they get older. The only reason that I don't love O mio bambino caro being sung in the in the talent shows by 9-year-olds is because they don't sound like 9-year-olds when they're singing it. They sound like 9-year-olds who are trying to sound like adults. They sound like 9-year-olds who are manipulating their bodies and their instruments to try to sound like a matured instrument or a matured body singing that song. And so then we get lots of different coordinations and coordination patterns, attention patterns built in that now are going to be pretty challenging to smooth out and to deal with as that singer becomes, as that singer moves through into their through their training. This is the issue. The issue is that we're asking them, we think that they have to sound like an adult they have to sound like Adele in order to sing Adele. No. If something is outside of their physical range, guess what? You're the teacher. you can change the key. You can make the verse, and you can move the verse up an octave, and you can move the chorus down an octave. You're allowed to, you're the teacher. Yes. Yes, exactly. Imitation, like, you're the teacher. You're saying, no, can't sing that. It's way out of your range. Put it in their range. What? How is it out of their range? It's not out of their range. Put it in their range. Make it so it works for them. They want to sing that song, and it's like, it's 20 verses long, and it's going to be really hard for them to learn because it's like so much. First of all, lots of young singers learn lots and lots and lots of like massive amounts of rep, tons of really long songs. So that's, some singers, that's not really an issue. But take out a verse, take out 10 verses, make it one verse that repeats you repeat the lyrics to 3 times. You're allowed. Are you not the teacher? Are you not the expert in the room? Why are you not? Why is this an issue? So kids with, there are lots of examples in the comments this week on the socials, right? So like kids with unchanged voices singing Bring Him Home. Why not? So long as he doesn't sound like Colm Wilkinson, or so long as he doesn't try to sound like Colm Wilkinson when he does it. Of course, why not? I don't care. Kids sing O mio babbino caro, we sounded like Rolling in the Deep. Why not? So long as they're like, make it accessible. The question for me is, when I am like, no, you can't sing that song because it is not in your range, it's too hard for you technically, it's not, what am I afraid of? Why am I gatekeeping that music, right? A lot of times the reason we are telling young singers that they can't sing Nessun Dorma, O mio babbino caro, that they can't sing some of these classical pieces that they want to sing and that they love, is because, no, it's out of your range. Why? We're afraid. The cost on this one is on us, right? We're afraid that another voice teacher, the parents maybe, the festival adjudicator, the examiner, the audition panel is going to be like, wow, that is a really bad teacher to let you sing that song. You don't sound like XYZ when you sing it. Because that's the culture, right? The culture is that your job is to gatekeep this music in a way, right? That's the culture, is that like, you can't sing it unless you do it properly or unless you sound the right way when you sing it. You can sing it. You just have to sound like a kid when you do. You have to sound like yourself. So that is another conversation that you may have to have with the singers who want to sing Nessun Dorma and sound like Pavarotti when they do at 7 years old. Yes, that is a conversation that you may need to have around the fact that, hey, you're 7 years old and so you can't sound like Pavarotti yet. No one sounds like him anyway, but you won't get close for another at least 10, probably 15 years. You won't get close. And that's okay. You can sing this song if you love it, and let's learn all the things we can from it. You sounding like you sounding like a 7-year-old. You're allowed, of course. So what are we afraid of, right? We're afraid we're going to get judged. We're afraid that the cost is going to be too much for us. We are also allowed to talk to parents in this same kind of thing and say, hey, kid loves. And sometimes parents bring them. Sometimes parents are like, I want my kid to sing. Well, they always sing Rolling in the Deep at home. Great, love that. Let me just tell you about this. This song was written to be sung. The way that we hear it in our heads is Adele. And that is an adult, that is a matured instrument, that is an adult instrument. And so your child singing this, your 10-year-old singing this, we're going to work on it. Just FYI, I love it. I love it for this kid. And also, because they love it, so I want them to sing what they love. we're gonna sing, we might cut out one little part of it here. We might put the chorus up a little bit. We might we might put the chorus down a little bit. We might bring the verse up a little bit. We might change things around a little bit, just FYI, so that it is accessible. She can sing it, she or he can sing it they can sing it in their most ease-filled way, and they will not sound like Adele. And that's the only thing. And that's okay. They're allowed to just sound like them and have fun singing the song they want to sing, right? That's the conversation you have with the parents. The conversation you don't have is, no, they can't. It's too hard for them. You're the teacher. Make it not hard. Okay. Yes. The other conversation we have is when kids may want to sing, when a 7-year-old may want to sing Nessun Dorma at the Nats auditions, or maybe they want to sing it in the local festival, or maybe they want to sing it at, I don't know, something where they are going to be public and someone is. The conversation that you have to have then is with parents, because at this point with young singers, we're not having a conversation with the young singer necessarily, they're in the room, but we're having the conversation with parents saying, here's the cost for this child to sing this repertoire in a festival, for an exam, in a Nats auditions, for any audition, etc. Here's the cost. The potential cost is this, that the adjudicator, the examiner, the people on the panel, the people in the audience are going to say, that kid shouldn't be singing that. That kid is going to hurt themselves. That kid is, there's going to be blah, blah, blah. That's the cost. You may hear this from, if you're singing in a festival and you're 7 and you're singing Nessun Dorma, the adjudicator may not give you first place because they may think that that is inappropriate repertoire. And so you may not win your class, even if you sang it beautifully. You may not win because, and that adjudicator may from right in front of everyone may say, this is inappropriate repertoire for you. Do you love this song? Well, I'd love to hear you sing it again when you're like 40 years old or something like that. I have said this. I have never said this is inappropriate repertoire. I have said, I would love to hear you sing this again when you are XYZ age, right? Because I have judged and said, these people made a bad choice. Nope. I have also changed that. Now I am saying, these people made a choice. I'm not judging their choice. I'm going to assume that they know what the cost is, what the potential cost is here. And I'm going to judge this thing as if they made the choice, whether they did or not. I'm going to judge this thing as if the parents are in on it, as if the teacher is in on it. Everybody has made a conscious choice and has already thought about the potential cost, which could be that me, the adjudicator, says, well, it's too bad that you sang this repertoire because it's inappropriate for you. It's too hard for you. I'm going to assume that they made the choice with all of the information they needed, right? Anyway, but when I'm talking to parents, I may say something like, and also the other potential cost is that other teachers are going to judge me and are going to perhaps call me a bad teacher because I am letting your kid sing inappropriate repertoire. I am willing to pay that cost because I know I'm a great teacher. And I personally, me, Shannon Coates, I am willing to pay that cost. You, as your own teacher in your area for whatever the event may be, you get to decide whether you're willing to pay that cost. It may be that you are a young teacher coming into your teaching. You are, you're in an area where you're pretty sure that if it gets out that you're giving kids the wrong repertoire, you'll never have another student again. That's a cost that you may not be willing to pay right now. And that's okay. You're allowed to say to yourself and to the parents, look, the cost of this is that both you and I will be judged about repertoire. And so let's figure out something that's going to be less costly for you to sing, for this singer to sing. And let's do this one in the recital. Or let's do this one in, a concert let's set up a concert specially to sing some of this rap. That's the cost. That's not a cost I'm willing to pay for this particular, etc. So that's the conversation you have. As soon as you think to yourself, this is physically impossible, that is a prompt in your brain. Take that as a prompt in your brain to say, what am I afraid of here? And also, am I not the teacher? I can make this possible. Also, they just have to sound like themselves when they sing it. We can work on the things that makes them sound like them. So long as I don't make sure that they're trying to, right? Okay, that one's done. Second point, the text is outside of the singer's experience, or the character is outside of the singer's experience, Again, this is a big one to me, was a big one for me. I used to get really mad when I saw like 12-year-olds singing Burn. And I get up in my feels about that, real up in my feels about that, especially if they were white. I'd get up in my feels about 7-year-olds singing Memory and, Someone Like You or whatever, History of Wrong Guys, I just get up in my feels about it, because I'm like, well, they can't sing it with appropriate engagement because they've never had these experiences, and I really hope they haven't had these experiences. And when I'm adjudicating festivals, I've said it a couple of times, and I'm really charming, and so I say that very charmingly, like, you're 10 and you've had so many like experiences with boyfriends that you're now, or partners that you're now like, you've now got a history of wrong guys. Right? I don't do that anymore. So, because if we are working with children and young adults to develop acting skills, empathy, agency, choice, making informed choices, I am not going to, I'm not going to say to a 10-year-old, you can't sing Memory because you're not old enough to like, be like, I remember the time I knew what happiness was. Like, you're just not old enough to sing that yet. And like, I was beautiful. Like, you're not old enough to sing that yet, convincingly. But you know what? Can they sing that text convincingly to me? Not really. Fine. But that's not the point. No 10-year-old is being cast as, what's the name of Grizel, who sings Memory? As that character. No 10-year-old is being cast as that character in Cats. In Cats. No 10-year-old is being cast as Eliza. Is it Eliza in Hamilton? God, everything's gone out of my head. No 10-year-old is being cast. No 10-year-old is being like. It doesn't matter whether or not they can sing it off. Grisabella, thank you. You are on it today for me. I appreciate it. No 10-year-old is being cast as these roles. No 10-year-old is being asked to do like a live concert of, I don't know, a live Adele impersonation concert where they have to like, they have to bring all of the feels to those songs. It doesn't matter. Oh, thank you. It doesn't matter whether they can sing it convincingly or not right now. It doesn't matter if these things are outside of their experience. They're singing it as a standalone song in your studio. So like, can a 10-year-old sing Memory convincingly as Grisabella? No, of course not. However, I'm pretty sure most 10-year-olds have something in their life they can be wistful about, that they wished for, that they can think on and think, oh, I wish that I had that again. I wish for those things. Every human does. Yes, that's true. There is a Cats Jr. Exactly. And they are singing these songs with the experiences they already have. Exactly. Exactly. That's exactly my point. And so can a 7-year-old sing Someone Like You convincingly? Probably not. Like, I steered through windows, watched life go by. Like, did you though? Probably not. But they can relate to something in that song about finding, like wanting something desperately and finding it. You know? I found this thing, and now suddenly everything is really wonderful. 7-year-olds can relate to that. I got to go to the pool. I've been wanting to swim all summer, and I got to go to the pool. Someone like you met someone like me. Like I got to go to the pool. That's what acting is it not? Isn't that what we're developing? Acting skills and communication skills, putting ourselves in other people's, empathy. But like, is that not what we're trying to develop? Can a 9-year-old relate to burn? Like, I really hope not, but can they find the I'll tell you what, my 9-year-old could find the emotions or could find the connection to having someone hurt them badly, that they just wanted to cut them off and remove themselves from the situation. Yeah, you can relate to that. 9-year-olds can relate to that for sure. Is it going to sound like the composer intended? No. But who cares? Why are we so insistent that the singers we work with sound like the thing that the composer intended? That is a legacy of friggin' Western classical culture. Yes, Sarah, exactly. Let me say that in a minute too. That is the legacy of Western classical culture that tells us that if it's Mozart, it has to sound like Mozart. If it's Faure, it has to sound like Faure. There is a school initiative, Les Mis, and I may or may not have played Fantine, but I was 12, right? I sang Memory in a festival when I was 13 and won. The adjudicator at that time took it on its own merits and said, like, obviously she's connecting to something in here, and she's singing it as, she sounds like a 13-year-old and she's singing it. So great, there you go. I know. Kids don't hear what we do in questionable lyrics. Yes, much of what needs to go over their heads does go over their heads. Yes, often it does. Exactly. Often, well, let me get to that in a second when we talk about some of the, sexually explicit lyrics too. But so again, this is the conversation that we can have with teenagers, and the conversation that we might have with the parents of young children we're working with. Because in some ways, the parents are deciding whether or not to pay the cost with young children. And once we're starting to get into teens and older teens, it's the teens who are deciding whether or not to pay the cost, right? The parents in some ways, but that is the process of individualization, individuating, where you're starting to come into your own and make these decisions for yourself. So when I'm talking about these kinds of songs where okay, so like, I regret to this day, and you will know who you are if you are listening, but I don't think you're on social media very often, so probably not listening, but I regret to this day telling a mom who was in my studio for a long time, who wanted her 2 daughters to sing the Wolf and Little Red Riding Hood duet from Into the Woods, which is such a suggestive, creepy little song. Woo, it's creepy. And she did not understand that it was suggestive and creepy. She just thought it was a lot of fun, and her daughters wanted to sing it. And so she was like, why can't they sing it in the festival? And I did not have the language at that time. I did not have the understanding at that time. I wasn't sort of like in touch with my teaching yet, in the way that I wish that I had been. I was not in touch with that at that time to be able to say, so yeah, they want to sing it. let's make it happen. Here's the cost. The possible cost is this. We will not be singing it the way that the composer intended because it's your two daughters. We're not going to make it creepy creep. We're not going to make it some kind of like creepy yucky. We're going to make it something different. And the cost is that the adjudicator in the festival might not give, might judge that. And they might say, well, you're not singing it the way that it was intended to be sung. And you're not giving us the, like what you want, what should be given from this. And also it's kind of inappropriate for like, I don't even remember how old they were. They were maybe like 7 and 12 or something like that. For like children to sing this song, blah, blah, blah. So that's the potential cost. I, as the teacher, am willing to pay that cost of the adjudicator, thinking that I let my students sing inappropriate repertoire, and of parents and other teachers in the audience thinking that about me and saying that about me. I am willing to pay that cost. Are you okay with that cost? If it does happen, are you okay with that cost? And if you are okay with it, great. Just so you know that that is a potential cost, that you may be judged, that the kids may be judged. That's a potential cost. And if you're okay with paying that cost, great. And you need to explain it to your kids too. I'll be here, but you need to explain to your kids that they may not get the kind of adjudication or recognition for their work that they perhaps should get because of a perception that this is inappropriate for these kids to sing. I wish that I had said it that way. I wish that I had done that. I did not. I said, no, this is inappropriate for them to sing because, it's too creepy. So that's what happened. And I came up with another duet and some other things to do. That's fine. But I wish that I hadn't. I wish that I had that I was working in the way that I work now, then. So there you go. This is the thing. I didn't have the language. And I also, here's the real kicker. I also felt like that parent was superseding my expertise, right? So I reacted out of all of this back thing of like parents and kids in the studio don't know what they're talking about, don't understand, and therefore my role is to make sure that they understand because I'm the expert. My role is to tell them what they don't know because I'm the expert. My role is to make sure they comply, and that's learning. So that is where that came from, right? That came from my internal feeling of like, they are trying to be the expert and I'm the expert and they aren't respecting my opinion and they are getting too involved. This mother is just overbearing and way too involved in these kids, and she is not listening to me and she is not deferring to me as the expert. She doesn't respect my expertise. Oops. What is that? That's my ego, friends. Hey, that's my insecurity. That's all of the things that makes me make decisions and say things that are not actually in alignment with my values. So what would have been in alignment with my values? Me just recognizing that this mom doesn't know, and that's okay. My job is to say, here's the thing. Let's do it if you want to, but here's the cost. Here's the potential cost. That's my job. Not you don't get to do it because I know better, right? So as soon as we have that feeling of like, no, you can't sing it because it's inappropriate. Ask yourself, what am I afraid of here? How am I taking this? How am I taking this request? Am I taking it as a challenge to my expertise? And therefore I must shut it down and show that I am the expert and I know better? Or is it just data? They just don't know. And my job is to offer the options and tell them about the costs. That's my job. It's just data. It's not a challenge to my expertise. That's just me. That's the, I mean, we're not going to gaslight ourselves, but we are going to recognize that this is a thing that is happening to me right now. Someone is saying a thing to me. Someone is asking to sing repertoire that is making me have some feelings, have some big feelings. Why am I having these big feelings? Oh yeah, I am noticing that I feel like my expertise is being challenged, and how dare they? How dare they? They don't know. I'm the expert. Something to consider. All right. The third thing, the third inappropriateness, is the when we have songs that have explicit language, lyrics, or questionable language, you know, swearing or explicit language, right? First question is this: is the music inherently sexual, or is that the lens through which we see the music? Is the music itself inherently sexual? Now, of course, if they are saying something like, you know, I want to F you tonight, I mean, but is that's pretty explicit. That's a pretty explicit talk about what I'm saying, you know, like my intention here. So that's pretty explicit. Maybe the lyrics are explicit, sure, and intention, you know, but about what, and maybe there's something in the lyrics that are objectionable, misogynistic, you know, like there are lots of things in lyrics that can be problematic for sure, where we want to sort of interrogate what are we singing and why? Where is this coming from? Is this in line with my values? But that's the next question. The question that, the thing that we are working with young kids, again, we're talking to parents about this with young kids. Is this in line with your values? Is this in line? Are these particular lyrics in line with your values, in line with your beliefs? They are not in line with my beliefs or my values. My values are this particularly misogynistic, this, you know, this, the level of explicitness in this lyric, etc., etc. This is not in line with my values in terms of like how I want to express. And that, so for that reason, we will either change the lyrics, we'll find a different way to say this thing. If it's swearing, we'll find a different way to say this thing. We can change the lyrics. We're not doing a Broadway show here. You're allowed to change the lyrics. You can do the thing. You're the teacher, remember. This isn't in line with my values. It may be in line with your values, and that's great, that's fine. In this studio, this one isn't in line with my values. And so I want to make the choice around this. And so we're gonna change these things in this particular way. This is, again, we're talking about with young kids. If it is in line with your values, if it's something that's sort of like on the fence or something that, I don't know, maybe whatever, it's fine for you, that's fine too, right? Like if it is in line with my values, I'm still having the conversation. This one is in line with my values. I am very happy for people to, you know, to sing XYZ, maybe not young children, maybe not, but I'm very happy for, you know, things to be, these specific things to be said. Is it in line with your values? If it's not, great. Let's figure out some other lyrics that can go with this. Let's figure out some other things. Songs are not inherently sexual, right? Music is not inherently sexual. It is the lens through which we view the music that makes it sexual, right? Or problematic. So they're not inherently. Lyrics can be, sure, but the music itself, not inherently. We feel some rhythms feel more sexy than others. Of course they do. But that's our response to it. It's not, music is agnostic. It's just music. It's agnostic. It's our lens. It's our perception of it that makes it sexy or not, or, you know, sexually provocative or not. It's the way that, yes. So what do? We have the conversation when we're talking about young children. We have the conversation. It's I prefer that like kids who are under the age of 13 aren't using you know, specific kinds of language in my studio. And so just FYI, we're gonna change you know, this word to shoot, or we're gonna change this word to frig, or whatever, just so you know that's in line with my policies and my value, and just because of the language I would prefer. Great, you can change it. You're the teacher. You're allowed to change it. Do-da, do-da. And I would like to ask you, if you're changing those explicit lyrics, are you also changing the lyrics to the foray songs that your teenagers are singing? Le papillon et la fleur is not about a butterfly and a flower. Why do we get to sing explicit lyrics or very suggestive lyrics in other languages and no one bats an eye? In fact, we're asking teenagers and young singers to sing very suggestive poetry. Le colibri! It is not about what you think it's about. It's not about what the words are. No, it's not. There may or may not be a petit mort, a little bit, if you know, you know, in that song. There may or may not be. French lyrics, French heart song, German heart song, well, to a different extent. French heart song in particular, French poetry in particular, they're just talking about sex in a billion different ways. So if you're changing the lyrics for the expressive, are you also changing them? I'm just asking, just wondering. Okay, when we're talking about teenagers, we are now talking about kids, folks who are starting to individuate and who are starting to have some options and who are starting, so here's the thing, the reason I'm saying that we're having these conversations with parents when we're talking about children is that we're having the conversations with parents because children, by the very nature of being children, are not yet able to make informed decisions about cost, right? You can say to them, hey, the cost is that you're going to lose, these points in this thing. But that children are not yet able to say, yeah, I'm okay to pay that cost because we're not cognitively there yet. Teenagers are starting to become cognitively there. That is part of being a teenager, where you start to make informed decisions because you understand what the consequence actually is, right? Young children, not necessarily understanding the actual consequence of, like, you may not win at the festival because you're singing this song. They don't know, but parents can. That's part of the reason we confer with the parents, especially with young children. I would say here's the cost, because parents have a better understanding of whether or not that child is able to emotionally pay that cost, and whether or not the parent has the resources to support that child through that, right? Whether that's a learning experience we want to have right now or not. These are all the questions that are more about parents than about me, right? I'm not protecting. I am part of the let's support your decisions, here are your options. When we're talking about teenagers and we're talking about, do you want to leave the swears in or not? Do you want to sing something that's explicit? Do you want to sing, I'll tell you another story in just a minute about something that I regret in my adjudicating days. In my former adjudicating days, I'm still adjudicating, but the conversation with teenagers goes a lot more like, hey, if you sing XYZ, and you may be having this conversation with your parents as well, of course, but if you sing XYZ song, it's overtly sexy, sexual, there are, overtly sexual lyrics in it, and you're going to probably want to move your body in a way that is overtly sexual, or that can be perceived as being overtly sexual. If you are 14, if you are 15, if you are 12, these conversations are really challenging because here's the cost. The cost is that we live in a society where there are going to be a whole bunch of adults in the audience who are going to perceive you, 12-year-old, as being a sexually attractive person, because that is our perception of this song and those moves and those lyrics. That's what's happening in our society right now. There are going to be some adults in that. There are going to be some adults who are going to perceive you as being sexually provocative because you're singing the song, blah, blah, blah. And that's not on you. That's on them. That is them. And there are going to be some adults in that audience, and perhaps there are going to be some, perhaps an educator, perhaps an examiner, perhaps someone on the audition panel, etc., who is going to say, that's inappropriate because you look too sexy for a 12-year-old. You look too sexy for a 16-year-old. You look too sexy. You're going to make someone in the audience think that you're sexy. No. That's on the adjudicator. That's on the examiner. That's on that adult who thinks that it's your fault that you are being perceived as being sexually provocative. Stay with me. Stay with me. This is the cost, right? So I'm going to say to that 12-year-old, with a 12-year-old, I'm going to have the parents in the room too, and say, look, this is the cost of what will happen here. Your 12-year-old, with a 16-year-old, I may still have the parents in the room. It really depends on the kids, right? Really depends on them. I may not have the parents in the room. I may be asking them to have the conversation with their parents. We'll see. But this is the cost of singing this song and these lyrics in particular. Here are are you willing to pay that cost? Do you want to pay that cost? If you don't want to pay that cost, I completely get it. Also, the cost to me, just FYI, is that, again, someone in that audience, some adjudicator, some examiner, someone is going to be like, wow, Shannon really lets her students sing inappropriate repertoire. That's going to be a cost for me. I personally, me, Shannon Coates, I am willing to pay that cost because where I am in my career and, I personally am willing to pay that cost. You as the teacher in this situation, you may not be willing to pay that cost, and that is fine. You're allowed to decide. You get to decide just as much. But these are the conversations, right, where you say, are you willing to pay that cost? If you're not willing to pay that cost, here are the options. We can change lyrics. We can change the context of the song. We can change the moves in the song. We can do lots of things to this song. The cost to that is that someone is going to say, well, it doesn't sound like the way it's supposed to sound, and you did this and you did that. That's a potential cost. The other option is you sing something else for this particular event. That's the other option. We just figure out something else to sing. So these are the conversations that we're having with teenagers, right? We're having these conversations with teenagers because we're saying, you get to start to make these choices. I'm not going to make these choices for you because I'm not gatekeeping. I'm not into compliance anymore. I have dealt with all of my ego stuff, all of it. I have dealt with a lot of the ego stuff in me that says, oh my gosh, this person doesn't know what they're talking about. They're coming against my expertise. They are not listening to me. They're being disrespectful. Or this person doesn't know what they're getting themselves into, and we can't let a 12-year-old look sexy on stage. Are there issues with 12-year-olds looking and provocative on stage? Yes, but it's mostly on the adults in the audience. Friends, it's on the adults in the audience. That's not on the 12-year-old on stage. No, it's not. No, it's not. Okay, so it's me singing. You're welcome. We get to make these choices. We need to understand the cost of the choice. And that is where we start to develop support agency, support being able to make decisions about what I want to do with my voice, how I want to communicate, what I want to communicate, and understanding what the cost may be, and understanding that I get to make choices. And I get to say, that's too much for me right now. I don't want to pay that cost right now. I'll wait until I feel stronger, or until I'm older, or until the society has changed. I'll wait. Maybe, right? One of the things, again, that I regret, which you may or may not be watching, I don't know, the folks involved in this one may or may not be watching because you are on social sometimes. One of the things I regret, I cannot remember how old you were, my friend, when I adjudicated, and you did, I think you were maybe 14, maybe 15, I can't remember now, 14, 15. and you sang. Oh, cabaret maybe? I can't remember. Can't remember. And it was fabulous. And the moves weren't sexy enough for cabaret. But I also didn't want them to necessarily be sexier because I was like 14, 15, however old. Maybe younger, I don't remember. Because I was like, that's going to be really awkward and really uncomfortable. And we talked about it in the adjudication. We talked about it. And what, if I were to see that today, and in fact I have seen some of those kinds of performances where I may have in the past been like, ooh, that's inappropriate. I'm not sure that that's a good choice. If I were to see that choice, if I were to see that again today, I would assume, and especially now that I actually know this singer now and I know their family and I understand, I would assume this singer and this family and this voice teacher have made some choices here and have decided that they are willing to pay the cost of being perceived as being sexually provocative at 14, 15, however old they were. And my job is not to say, ooh, that was too sexy and you probably shouldn't do that. Or, that's not my job. My job is in this situation to assume that you have made the choice. You have made an informed choice, and this is the way that you want to be perceived, and that you are, that you are willing to be perceived in this way, and that you are willing to bear the cost of being judged for it. My job is to simply adjudicate and say, hey, wow, you sang the snot out of that. In order for this to feel even more authentic, how much more can your hips move? Oh, that is such a great question. Do I assign these kinds of songs with conversation or only let the student bring them to you? So in terms of repertoire, depending on the singer's goals, I tend to be quite hands-off now. I have in the past been very much a sort of like, here are the things you must sing for your pedagogical improvement, for your, because pedagogy, because we got to build learning. I have in the past been that way. It depends. So when I'm working with very young singers, so if we're talking like sort of 15 and under, 14 and under, I am going to be thinking about repertoire based on the songs that you, the singer, want to sing and your goals in terms of like, what do you want to communicate with your voice? What is your why, right? What is your why? What do you want to use your voice for? And I think it is the prerogative. I think it is something that is important for independent voice teachers in particular who are working with a broad range of singers and often with young singers. I think part of our prerogative is to make sure that we are introducing a wide variety of repertoire and styles to young singers. So I think that is part of what we should be doing is to have the conversations around like, have you ever sung folk song before? And let's see if you love this art song. Let's see if you love this, this old style music theater. Let's see if you love it. Like, I think that, do you want to try singing in another language? Like, I think that is part of our job, especially when we're working, say, like 14 and under, 15 and under, maybe even 16 and under, is to introduce styles and other kinds of music into their lives that they may not encounter otherwise, right? However, that is always based on, those introductions for me are always based on, what do you love already and where do you want to go with your voice? What do you want to say with your voice, right? So if you're coming into me and the main thing that you love singing is Taylor Swift, amazing, love that. Let's do all the Taylor Swift. God knows there's enough songs. Let's do all the Taylor Swift. Let's work on that. And then as we go along, I might put together a playlist of maybe some old school musical, maybe some music theater that is like from Alanis Morissette, like from the what's it called, Jagged Little Pill, from like Mamma Mia, maybe like some of the jukebox musicals, some of those songs that are written for, that have that kind of poppy feel to them. I might put some of those together in it and say, like, do you love any of these? Let's see what happens. I might pull out a folk song that has a similar kind of longing in it that maybe, you know, a Taylor Swift song has. I can't think of, how can I not think of any Taylor Swift songs right now? Cannot think of any. But like, I might pull out a folk song that has a similar kind of, you know, it's asking the same questions, or it's speaking to the same kinds of experience that one of the Taylor Swift songs that they love to sing is speaking to. You see how that's sort of like building? So I'm not necessarily, and I'm very rarely going to offer songs that are like, where we have to have these conversations around, like, you know, if you choose to sing it this way, we're going to do this. Like, I'm very rarely actually offering those kinds of songs. I may offer that song if, say, everything that they love to sing is, I don't know, maybe everything they love to sing is, I can't think of anything. I don't know. Maybe they only ever want to sing sexually explicit pop songs. Maybe that's the only thing they want to sing. Okay, well, we start to have those conversations because that's what you want to sing. And I might introduce something that has not Papillon et la Fleur, but maybe something that is where the poetry is a little bit, you know, can be read in that sort of like explicit way, but it's, you know, it's a little more hidden. So I'm not necessarily going to introduce those kinds of songs necessarily, unless it is something that they're already building on. If someone has, so when singers come into the studio, older teens especially come into the studio, there are lots of young singers come into the studio, in my experience, several young singers coming into the studio who absolutely know that they want to be on Broadway, or they want to be a rock star, or they want to be like lots of young singers, and that's fine too. I still think that I want to give them, I want to open up their experience to some other styles and some other kinds of music for sure, and exploration. But when we're talking about older singers, so, you know, 14, 15, 16, by the time we're getting into those later teens, when they're coming into the studio and they know exactly what they want to sing, I may not introduce the same breadth, if you will, of other music. We're likely going to stay genre adjacent without having that same kind of like, depending on their goals, really very much depending on their goals. I think I might have got off track in terms of that. Let the student bring them to you. If the student brings it to me, then we have the conversation for sure. Yeah, hopefully that answered the question. I don't know if that answered the question or not. I'm like, squirrel. Okay. Here's the thing. When you find yourself reacting to a repertoire choice or not offering a repertoire choice. So I'm talking more specifically about when singers are bringing repertoire to us, but also when we might be looking at some repertoire and thinking, oh no, I don't think that's a good choice for them right now. Sorry, just having a little thought there. I wonder, maybe this is coming back to a little bit actually to that question, is any kind of repertoire songs that I'm suggesting, for the most part, I am not going to suggest stuff that we need to make adjustments to, like in terms of it being, you know, high, out of their range. I'm not necessarily going to suggest stuff that we need to change, so, or that we need to make choices around when I'm suggesting it. For the most part, I think that this lens that we're talking about right now is about when singers are bringing repertoire to me, if that makes sense. So when I find myself reacting to a repertoire choice, like start to just notice it. Notice when my first reaction is to say no, or to say that's inappropriate, or to say, but you can't sing that, it's too hard. Just notice that. Notice that. Like, observe it. This is interesting data. Where is that coming from? Get curious about it. I am reacting to this. I'm having some big feelings about this repertoire, and my first instinct is to say, no, that's bad, or don't do it. And I may have good reasons, right? Like some of those things, I thought they were really good reasons. Good reasons. I may have very good reasons for saying no. Get curious about it. Ask, what am I trying to control here? Why? What am I afraid of? What is stopping me here? What is telling me that I can't? Whose voice is telling me that this is inappropriate? Because it may not actually be me, or, I mean, it is me, but whose voice did I listen to that made me think, that is still ringing around in my head, that told me that this is inappropriate repertoire? You know, who told me that? And what's the cost to me if they do sing this repertoire? And how can I support the singer to make an informed decision about this repertoire? How can I empower them to start to make informed decisions? How can I support them to make informed decisions? And then what I mean, you're allowed to also just have off-limits repertoire. You're totally allowed to say that. You're allowed to say, you know what, not in line with my values, but if it's not in line with your values, if the repertoire is not in line with your values, take a hot second to make sure that you are also then making those same kinds of choices around, say, le colibri, or le papillon et la fleur, or some of the other caro mio ben. So like, well, caro mio ben is not quite, but caro mio ben is a little, yes, less, but there are lots of those songs that are saying something, you know, that can be perceived as being sexually explicit or provocative. And am I just as mad about them as I am about the ones that are saying it? Am I just as mad about those as I am about the other ones? Like, just take a second to sort of examine that, right? Whose voice is telling you that this one's appropriate and this one isn't appropriate? Something to consider. All right. That's where we're going to end today. That was like over an hour. You are so welcome. And thank you for listening for this whole time. If you made it through, thank you. Thank you. I am going to make every attempt to put this into a Substack article. So I'm going to make every attempt to do that. We'll see. That's my intention, to make this topic into a Substack article. So look for that. Fingers crossed it'll be out on Tuesday. And then next week we are going to talk about adolescent voices in my live office hours. We're going to talk about adolescent voices. We're going to talk about the motivating teens and preteens. Yeah. So we're going to talk about the three kinds of adolescents who tend to come into the studio, right? You've got the adolescents, the like preteens and teens, who are like, they know everything they want to do with their lives. They know why they're taking voice lessons. They know that they're gonna, like, this is what they want to sound like. They know everything, right? They know their repertoire. They know they've watched every musical 400 times. Like, you've got those guys. And then you've got the other ones who are taking voice lessons because their friend does, or because their mom wanted them to, or parent wanted them to, or because or because they've got something really deep inside that they have never acknowledged, and that they are hoping at some point that they are going to be able to communicate in a way that they would like to be seen or heard, but it's going to take you 5 years for them to actually acknowledge that, like, it's so deep inside. So you've got those ones. And then you've got the ones and so then they're like full of ennui, right? You've got anybody seen Inside Out 2? They're the ennui. They're like, yeah, I guess I'll sing that. I don't know. What do you want to sing? I don't know. What do you want me to sing? I don't know. I guess. I don't really want to do a warm up. I don't like these scales. can I just, oh no, I don't want to sing Taylor Swift. Everybody sings Taylor Swift. I want to sing like, emo, you know, like you've got the ennui. So we're going to talk about motivating, we're going to talk about dealing with ennui in the studio next week. So tune in for that if you like. And like I said, registration should be open Tuesday for Child Voice 101, Adolescent Voice 101, and Aging Voice 101. So great. I'll see you next week, if not before. Have a great weekend. Take good care.